I start, I'll talk about Participedia and then introduce Paola, who will speak more about the presentation today. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of the land. I'd like to acknowledge that McMaster and the Kaa communities located in the traditional territories of the Mississauga and the Haudenosaunee nations and territories covered by the dish with one spoon, one pond agreement. We're grateful for the land and for the indigenous communities that call it home. So what we have today is one of the two main public events for our Participedia project. Participedia, it's a global network of scholars, activists, practitioners, policymakers interested in civic engagement, democratic participation, and democratic innovation. And we're meeting here at McMaster University for our first in-person All Partners Conference for the phase 2 of our project. So we're delighted to have you, particularly welcome those who've joined us from the community and those who are joining us remotely. I know there are lots of Participedia members joining us remotely. So to the exciting stuff, I'm really delighted about this presentation, by my colleague here at the university, Dr. Syrus Ware. He is a professor in the School of the Arts here at the university. And I'll be handing it over to Paola, who knows a lot more about this stuff, to tell us what we're going to witness today. But I've been assured that it's going to be interesting. So get ready to move. That's all I've been told. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paola Ardiles, and I'm a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Health Science. And I'm also a Participedia member, and I am very lucky to co-chair the Teaching, Training, and Mentorship Committee along with Julie and Bettina that are sitting. Hello. And I just wanted to say that this evening, or this afternoon, has been co-created by a group of us, including Jesse and Paul. And so we're very excited to have you participate today. I just wanted to give a little bit of a background. So I am, as I mentioned, at Simon Fraser University in British Columbia, and I am on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish people. But my people were also colonized in the global south, and I'm originally from the land of the Aconcagua, Atacama, Aymara, Mapuche, and many other indigenous people from the land that today we call Chile. And in that spirit, I wanted to share that a little bit about what we're going to be doing today is bringing all of us into this conversation about what does democratic innovations mean. In particular, how can we actually bring in our activist perspective and even our artistic. So you're all going to be participating in the process. So we're going to have a very interactive session. And one of the questions that we've been asking ourselves today in the conference is, what gives you hope for democracy today? And when my mother was pregnant with me, it was during the time when Paulo Freire was writing his book on the pedagogy of the oppressed in the late 60s, so I think I've just given away my age now. But I wanted to speak to that because she was studying education. And so I learned these things in utero, and so that's why I think hope is a very special word to me. And Freire spoke about that, about having hope because it's impossible to live without it. It's part of our human condition. But it's also an act in spite of the realities that we're facing. So today, in the realities of so much violence and aggression that we're facing, so much discrimination, racism and xenophobia, there is a lot of hope that we need to build. And so Freire calls us not to just inspire hope, but to evoke it. And I think that that's a perfect segue into today's keynote speaker. So we're going to be really fortunate today to have a talk, and it's actually going to be more than a talk. It's going to be about participatory art and activism as it relates to abolitionist innovations. So today we are going to feature an artist, an activist, a scholar, Dr. Syrus Marcus Ware, that presents the artistic intent around Antarctica and Ancestors. Can you read us? Dispatches from the Future. This is part of the first public event of the Participedia 2022 conference, and it's part of a larger series. The performance and video piece that we will see illuminate contemporary points of crisis in society and democracy while offering insights for abolitionist world building by non-carceral methods. First exhibited at the Toronto Biennale of Arts in 2019, the piece is described as an imagined time portal through which the next generation of racialized activists offer insights into the future radically altered by climate change. And I'm very pleased to welcome to the stage Dr. Syrus Marcus Ware, who is a scholar, activist, and visual artist, and educator, and many other things, I'm sure, that we'll find out later, who has joined McMaster University School of the Arts as a tenure-track assistant professor, and also will be teaching in the Gender and Social Justice program. A former Vanu scholar, Ware holds a PhD in environmental studies from York University, where his dissertation focused on disability arts, prison abolition, and portraiture. A founding member of Black Lives Matter Canada, Ware's scholarship largely looks at Black activist culture, disability justice in all its forms of media and formats, and the way that art can inspire the irresistible revolution, to paraphrase from Tony Cade Bambara. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Cyrus to the stage.
Thank you so much to everyone at Participedia for the invitation, and also thank you so much for creating a hybrid event that allows all of us to get to engage and participate fully, so really appreciate it. Today we're going to go on a bit of an adventure. We're going to travel through time to a couple of different time periods. So first of all, my name is Cyrus. Thank you for that introduction, those introductions. We're going to travel through time together today through the power of art. We're going to go to a near future, a distant future, and then back a little bit closer to this time zone again. We're also going to have an opportunity to be together outside on the land, and for those who are virtual, in breakout rooms together. So we're going to go on a journey. First of all, what we're going to start with is an exploration of a couple of different projects that I've done that try to plant the seed for a different kind of future. So I've been an activist for 25 years, I've been an artist for 25 years, and I've been creating work that helps us to literally imagine a different kind of future through visual art, through performance, through theater. So I was invited or commissioned by Candace Hopkins and Tyrone Bastian, who are the curators of the Toronto Biennale for 2019 and 2022, to create a project that became something called Antarctica and Birdland Freedom. This was an expansive project that spanned 4 years and that told this imagined story about what might happen if people actually went to Antarctica to colonize it. The reason why I was interested in this as a story idea was because I had been, what did they call it, doom scrolling one day, and I was like, I don't know enough about Antarctica. I want to look up more about Antarctica. And I found out that 11 people have already been sent to Antarctica to be born to stake future land claims. So that's already happened. So this story is about what would happen if those 11 people were actually sent home to set up future colonies. So this is an artistic rendering that I created of Antarctica that shows the actual delineations of the different ownership lines for the continent. And these are the 3 actors who ended up taking on the role of 3 BIPOC Antarcticans who, yes, go to Antarctica, but have very different plans for what they're going to do with their time there. So working with actors Yusuf Kadura, Raven Wings, and Dainty Smith, we told a story about what would happen in 2027. Race wars everywhere, climate change run amok, the last habitable place seemingly on the planet becomes Antarctica, and all eyes are there. So this story picks up when the Antarcticans have been sent to this continent known as the Wide White Continent, very similar to Canada and the Great White North. And it's about Raven Wings, who plays the character Sabian, Yusuf Kaddour, who plays the character Marcus, and Dainty Smith, who plays the character Jessica, having to navigate being BIPOCs in an all-white landscape. So this entire project was white. The set was white, the costumes were white, there were these icebergs that were hanging from the ceiling that looked a little bit like clan robes. It was really referencing the way that white supremacy was widespread through colonial processes, and it asked this question about climate change, and it asked questions about whether humans would ever realize that colonizing was not where it's at, was not okay. So this project was part of the Toronto Biennale for 2019, but it also toured. This is an installation shot in Montreal, and it's toured a couple of different places. This project continued in part 2. So at the end of this story, this play that took place in an immersive installation, Sabian, who's an activist, she convinces the other two, like, let's leave. You know, we could go somewhere else. We don't have to continue out or follow, out this colonial mission. We could do something different. And she tries to convince them to go to a place that is in real life called Mary Bird Land, the only part of Antarctica that hasn't been claimed by a country. She says, let's go there and we'll set up a free society. And they argue, you can't get there. Nobody's ever been there. You can't. And she says, we'll swim. We'll use thermal regulators and we'll swim through the icy waters. So at the end of the Toronto Biennale 2019, all you knew was that they all agreed to go, they got in the icy waters, and it was unclear whether they were going to survive. And then the second biennial happened, and it's just closed. It just ran from March to June 2022, and I created Mary Birdland Freedom, which tells the story about actually what happens to these people when they get in the water, when they swim to this unknown territory. And of course, what ends up happening is that they find the most unlikely thing. They swim through icy waters with thermal regulators. They get swallowed up by storms, they barely make it, and when they arrive on the shores of Antarctica, this part of Antarctica, they find a forest growing, and they can't explain it. So I'm gonna show you a little clip from the beginning of this project. It's actually a 3-channel video that takes place on 3 different channels, but I'm gonna show you it all on one screen. So this is the beginning of Mary Birdland Freedom. This is what happens to them right after they get into the icy waters and try to swim towards freedom.
Do you know how it started? How we got here? I know, the orientation video. But have you ever heard the real story? The story of the time before we got here, when it was just the 3 of them, swimming, trying to find free land.
plants here? Marcus, why are there plants here?
Moss licum sphagnum. How are these here? No spores have been planted yet. None of the other colonies have started terraforming, and here in the vacant territory there should be nothing but snow.
Well, this is great. If this land is already turning, will we be closer to terraforming for our community?
No, this doesn't make sense. I think we should be careful.
Let's go through that path there and see what's beyond it. We can lay low just in case. Forest? How is this here? Now, this doesn't make any sense. Look! What do? We knock. This land was supposed to be for our free community. We should find out who's living there and if they're a threat.
And what if they're company?
Company doesn't look like this. Think about it. Everything about the company was white. The land, the people, our uniforms. This is the most color I've seen since we got here.
I think we should go back to the beach and set up. It's gonna be dark soon enough.
Unless they're friendly and we can take shelter in that dome.
Right.
Fuck, you're so trusting. You really think the best of everyone? Fine. Let's go check it out, but I really think we should be ready for anything.
Jess, who does it hurt? I could take one leaf. Maybe there's cannabis here, too?
What are you doing? Do you have a death wish?
I'm cold, I'm tired, and this looks like someone's home. Not some company outpost. Somebody had to do it. Look.
Look at all of this color. This is the most color I've seen since we got here. Who lives here?
I do. Who are you and why are you here? Your uniforms, are you company?
We're not company. We are free people looking for a place to land safely. We came to Marybear Land to find safety.
Wait, Sabian. You're somehow living in a multicolored dome house in the middle of a forest on a large sheet of ice in one of the most contested areas of land on Earth, and you're asking us who we are and how we got here? That's bold, man. Who the hell are you and how are you even here? How come there's a forest here in Antarctica?
So, you're not company?
No.
I didn't think I'd see another person again. It's been a while.
Care to tell us who you are? I'm Marcus, this is Sabian and Jess.
Jessica. It's Jessica.
Jessica. Your turn.
Eugenio, I'm a scientist. I came here to live in peace. Had to get away from the race wars. You too?
Us? It's a bit more complicated. We're Antarcticans.
No shit.
We were born here.
I watch all the news of your journeys here. Can't believe you survived being plopped down here, cut off from everything. Pawns at the company game to distract people from the depleting resources. Shit, the company. They must be looking for you. Do they know you're gone? You're gonna lead them right to here.
No, we didn't lead them here. And we covered our tracks. The company won't know for months.
Come in.
They talked for hours that day. Eventually, they agreed to share the space, with the agreement that the Antarcticans would move south when the weather was warmer to set up their community. They would leave Eugenio to their privacy.
Sabian knows. She knows now. Our baby's on its way. Soon enough. I think I'm about 5 or 6 months now.
Really articulate what I think a lot of people in the general public are kind of wondering and questioning about abolition. But what about this, or but what about that, or what will we do if this happens? And Eugenio really challenges them. So the story is about how they eventually negotiate sharing the land and sharing the space, and I won't give it all away, but it's this story is a potential future. During the biennial, I hosted 3 programs to go along with this project. The first, a workshop set in the year 2050. So I don't know if you've ever gone to a workshop that was set in a different year than you left your house in, but you went through a portal and you were in the year 2050. The conditions of life were different, and we did a circle-based workshop that was led by Giselle Diaz, who's an Indigenous scholar based out of St. Catharines, and Sandy Hudson, who's a Black scholar based out of Los Angeles. We did this workshop on Abolition 201, Imagining a Different Kind of Future, where we respond to conflict, crisis, and harm in new ways. We also held the Cabaret at the Edge of the Future, which was a cabaret set in the year 2067. So they've succeeded. They've set up this free community. They're thriving, they're living, and there were all of these performances that you could come and see through this time portal into the future. And then the last workshop we did was just this past Saturday, and it was a portal into the year 2027, and it was about what happened when they first landed in Antarctica and the actors were performing and engaging in the story. So that project was a project that spanned 4 years, and it allowed me to talk about climate change. It allowed me to talk about white supremacy. It allowed me to talk about transjustice. One of the characters, Sabian, is a trans woman. She ends up being the mother to the first freeborn Antarctican who, well, now I've given it away, but there's a baby that gets born. And Sabian is the mother, and Jessica is the other mother. And it allowed me also to talk about expansive love, because the 3 of them are in sort of a polycule. And then, of course, when they meet this enigmatic stranger, when they land in Mary Birdland, that kind of throws everything off. So it was really fun to be able to tell this story and to be able to help us imagine a different kind of future. I've been doing abolition work and helping to address issues of police brutality, issues of prison violence for 25 years. And one of the things that can be so difficult is to just imagine something other than what we have now. It seems so impossible to imagine a world without policing or prisons. It's just such an imaginative leap, it can be hard to get there. So I wanted to create a series of projects that imagined it, that painted a picture of what it could be like, so that we could try to dream forward into a different kind of future. Now, for the first biennial in 2019, I was also commissioned to create a second work, a video work for Ryerson Image Center's media wall. And I decided to tell a story in a decidedly different future, set in the year 2072, so really, really far in the distant future. And I wanted to know what would happen if our great-grandchildren came back and gave us a message from that time period? What would they want to say to us, their ancestors? And what would it mean to think of ourselves as being ancestors to the generations that were coming ahead, that were coming after us? How would we move differently? How would we behave differently in this contemporary society if we were imagining ourselves as being ancestors to the generations that will be born free? So I gathered together a bunch of dancers and visual artists and performers, and we told this story about a future in 2072 where our great-grandchildren come to tell us something. This is what it looked like installed at the Ryerson Image Center on the new media wall. It was shot in 4K, and it was an 8-channel video that was spread across 8 screens. It's toured a lot, this video. This is an installation in Montreal, and I'd like to play the video for you now. You'll get a little bit of a window. So imagine you're sitting in this auditorium in Hamilton. Maybe some of you are watching from home, but you're just going to imagine that as soon as I hit play, you're going to temporarily go into the future, into 2072. So here we go.
Do you read me?
Do you read me?
Can you read us? Can you copy?
Do you read us? Can you copy?
Do you read us?
Whoa, can you read me?
We are your great-grandchildren. We have a message for you.
Culture. This scene is really gone crazy out here right now.
Do you read us? Do you read us? Can you copy?
We have a message for you from 2072.
We are your great-grandchildren.
We are your great-grandchildren. We have a message for you. The first thing we want to say is that we love you.
Is that we love you. It was because of you that we survived 3 generations past what was predicted.
It was because of you that we were able to stop this ravage of the earth, our mother.
We were able to stop this ravage of the earth.
The atomic age has moved forward at such a pace. The language of atomic warfare.
The atomic age has moved forward at such a pace. The language of atomic warfare.
Do you read us? Can you copy?
Do you read me? Can you copy? The second thing is, we want to warn you.
We want to warn you.
You told us how to build this technology to contact you, to act, to rebel, to take this earth back from the capitalists.
You told us how to create this technology to contact you.
So we can tell you to act. To rebel.
Because one woman said, I have had enough.
To take back the earth.
Take it back.
To take back the earth from the capitalists. To find self-determination and freedom.
Black people survive because of you.
Because of you.
It's not too late. We want to thank you, ancestors. We love you.
We love you, ancestors.
We thank you.
Thank you, ancestors.
In transmission.
In transmission.
So that story was set in 2072, and again, our great-grandchildren have figured out a way using old technology to patch through into the Ryerson Image wall to tell us this message, to say, hold on, something different needs to happen, and you're the ones who are going to do it. So it was so beautiful to start today talking about hope and talking about Paola Ardiles and thinking about what might be possible if we believed in a different kind of future. In that story, they intentionally say, Black people survive because of you. And that is drawing on the conceptualization from the Combahee River Collective in the 1970s that said that if we made the world safer for Black women, we would necessarily be making the world safer for everyone else. And also sort of thinking through forward ahead into the 90s and thinking alongside Kimberly Crenshaw on this idea that if we're making the world safer for those who are most marginalized, we're necessarily making the world safer for everyone. So if Black people have survived, everyone has survived. And there are Afro-Indigenous people who you see in this, and they're in a landscape that seems remediated. So something is different, and that is possible. Now, the last video that I want to leave you with before we get into some participation at Participedia is this video that is set in an ambiguous future. It's sort of maybe closer to 2030, 2029, and it is set on a day when everything changes after a long period of time of everything being the same. This project is called Emmet, and it was commissioned by CBC GEM and the Obsidian Theater, and it tells the story about Emmet and Medgar, two beloveds whose story is told through this work. It was directed by Tanisha Tate and features actor Prince Mpansa, and it aired on CBC GEM from February 2021 until February 2022 as part of their 21 Black Futures program, and this is Emmet.
It's been 7 years exactly since the fall. I normally spend today remembering the past, honoring our dead, and marveling that I somehow survived. I do it alone, It feels private somehow. I mean, I guess we do everything alone now. I like to light candles. I normally do the same things on this day as I remember. But this year, everything is different. Today is not about the past. It's about the future. Today, they found life on Venus. Not the traces of life's residue like they found in 2020. Remember that? How excited we were? No. This is actual life. Living beings that we are going to be able to communicate with. They're sending more transmissions tonight. I can hardly believe it. My transmitter's charging now so that I can tune in tonight. We are not alone. Not alone. Not alone. The fall claimed so many of us. The majority of the Earth's population fell, and we who are left are scattered around the globe, living off whatever we can find. In what was Toronto, the former cityscape exists as a large peninsula that stands in the massive Great Ontario Sea. The Humber River and Don flooded Toronto and met with Lake Ontario and northern waterways to form the sea, which stretches as far east as what was once the St. Lawrence River. Our peninsula is long, maybe 100 kilometers. And it is wide and covered in forest. In the edges of the dense forests lining the shores, I make my way. I was never naive enough to think that it would be me who survived an apocalypse. In all the stories you read, the protagonist always has just what it takes, timing and skill to be able to avoid the worst. We assume we too would survive any eventuality. I saw the flaw in that. The false hope. The futility of imagining that of all the billions of humans on Earth, I would be the one spared. And so I lived my life knowing that when shit really got bad, I likely wouldn't survive. I would try, sure, but the odds were stacked against me. Emmet. You were so sure you could survive anything. It's one of the first things I loved about you. The universe has a way of showing us up at every turn. I survived. Against all odds and in the most unlikely of ways, I survived the fall. Me, my disabled, chronically ill, and immunocompromised self. I survived the fall. The virus to end all viruses. And I'm alone. More alone than I'd ever been before. It's weird living in a forest with no birds. An avian virus wiped out all the birds maybe 4 years ago. It's made the earth eerily silent. I never really noticed how much a part of our white noise background they were. Maybe more than the cars and the traffic. I remember lying in bed in the mornings at my grandparents' house. They lived off this lake. There was a loon nesting ground, and they would fly over the house every morning around 7:30. That particular cry that only loons make. It's hard to imagine. All birds gone. They just fell from the sky. At one point, the ground was littered with dead birds across the forest floor by this sea. And then bones everywhere. Carcasses decaying. And then nothing. And there was silence. So much silence. I have 3 feathers. I found them in the underbrush on a walk shortly after the birds fell. To hold them, they're so soft, you know? They allow for flight. It's hard to imagine that they'll never again exist. The world is quiet. And now, as of today, we will no longer be alone. We may not even have to stay on the Earth. As of today, the scientists watching the stars confirm that they have made contact with the folks on Venus. Imagine leaving Earth? I never was one of those people. The Mars enthusiasts. The ones who wanted to just bail and find another planet to contaminate. I wasn't an environmentalist per se, but I'd always been firm that I'd rather stay and try to heal this place. I know you loved the idea of Mars. And I wanted to stay here. This Earth. Our home. In the end, it's done a great job of healing itself. With the majority of the world's population gone, the water runs clean, industry has stopped, and the air is returning to normal. Everything is green and expansive. Life is returning to a balance on this planet. It's a perfect time to stay here. If not for the viruses. I remember when the worst one hit. The one that ultimately caused the fall. Terrifyingly lethal. It still lingers. It still kills. It still has a slow spread. And we know there'll just be more coming. But life out in space, that is impossible to imagine. I mean, those that went to Mars died within the first year. They'll be broadcasting the communication with Venus tonight. Today. On the anniversary of the fall. On the anniversary of losing you. Today we'll meet a possible future. Something we have never before dreamed. This shoreline used to be Eglinton. The street that never stopped being contested. The street that was my home. The street where all the black people lived. Little Jamaica. Home. I sought out where the street met this shoreline, chose to make home here, like somehow being where I grew up would be safer. Though nothing about this place is as it was then. Remember, my love? When we lived there together? So much has changed since the fall. I wish you were here with me. I wanted to make this recording. I wanted to make this recording in case... What? That somehow, in some parallel dimension, you can hear this and know that I remembered you? That I never forgot? Hell, if there's life on Venus, maybe there's a way that you're out there still. As energy, in our atmosphere, in the stardust. Why couldn't we have both broken the odds? What is the point of a future here, in space, anywhere, without you? Emmett, I love you. End recording.
So that was Emmett, and it tells a future story where Medgar Evers and Emmett Till are beloveds. And they've somehow been reincarnated in a future world where they actually get to survive until the virus, separates them, and it's about what happens in the future. So those 3 film offerings offer windows into 3 different potential futures. And what we're going to spend some time today doing is exploring what kind of futures you're dreaming into, what kind of futures you're hoping to live into. But what we thought we would do first was to just have a bit of time to reflect on what we just experienced. So you just went through, 2027, 2050, 2072, and then back to the ambiguous 2030s. So you've been all over a bunch of different time zones. I know time travel is exhausting. You're going to spend a little bit of time chatting with your partner, or if you're here joining us online, maybe in a breakout room with another person. What we're going to do first is a little bit of free writing. So I'll invite everybody to just take out your phone or anything that you have that you might be able to write with. And we're just going to spend about 2 minutes just writing down your thoughts of what it is that you just saw, what it is that you just witnessed, and what it makes you think about your future. And then we're going to share with, you don't have to share everything that you've written, but we're going to do some sharing with a partner. So I'll time you, and you'll have about 2 minutes just to, text yourself or write it down or put it in your notes. But what did you just experience? What does it make you think about your own future? What are you hoping towards? And if you're joining us from online, welcome, and just feel free to write down with whatever materials you have, and then you'll have a chance to share in a minute. I'll let you know when. If you find yourself getting stuck, you can just write yes, 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 yes until it starts to flow. Okay, and just slowly start to wrap up your sentences. And what I'll ask you to do now is to just look over what you've jotted down. And then when you're ready, turn to a partner, and you'll have a conversation where you'll share a little bit about your reflections on what you just experienced. And we'll have a couple of minutes with our partners. But when you're ready, turn to your partner. And if you're joining us online, I think there are breakout rooms that should be set up, and you'll be going into a breakout room and just sharing some of your reflections of what you jotted down. Enjoy. Oh, okay, perfect. Great. Okay, so slowly start to wrap up your conversations. And for folks who are online, maybe it's time to close the breakout rooms. And we'll slowly come back together. So it would be great just to hear a little bit of reflections of some of the things that you talked about, or some of the things that sort of surfaced for you, or some of the things that were alive for you as you were sort of imagining these potential futures. Does anybody want to share any reflection that they had in their small group discussion? And if you're doing this online, you can also enter in the chat. That would be great. Yeah. Yeah. Hope and futility. I won't be able to summarize all of that, but I want to make sure that that's captured by the mic. But just this idea that the field that you're in offers a possibility of hope in a different way than some other fields, even in climate science, that didn't offer the same possibility that something could potentially be different. These works, even the last one, Emmett, which I know is a sad one to end on because these beloveds have been separated by this virus, but there's hope there still, because, it's this day that everything's different. Venus, they found life on Venus. There is this potential that he'll be able to contact Medgar again in some way. So hope is so powerful and so essential. What other reflections did you have based on your discussion with your partners or your small groups? Yeah. So this contrast of, these movies that had, a bit of a dangerous edge, a bit of a, potential sinister edge to the future, but then I'm coming in with a soothing voice and talking about hope. And I think that, fundamentally that's what I think a lot of our ideas about the future are, is, there's so much potential for it to go well. And there's also the potential that it will go terribly, terribly wrong. What is it that Stephen Hawking keeps saying? Stop sending messages into space. The aliens are going to come, and they're not. And this is Stephen Hawking. He knows what he's talking about. But there is this potential danger in a future that we don't know is coming. And Emmett, there are some eerie things that are just a little bit too real that could happen. My twin is a scientist and is a curator at the American Museum of Natural History. chemistry and she studies insects and invertebrates, but we were talking when I was working on EMED, and I asked her, do you think that it's possible that there could be an avian virus that wiped out birds? And she said, possible. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. It's not necessarily a likely possibility, but it could happen. So I wrote my worst dreams, what would happen? And, Medgar describes that, the birds falling from the sky, then just sort of decaying there, but then this hope that he has these 3 feathers that he's been able to hold on to, so there's always this little bit of hope that is there, and that is a bit of possibility. So thank you so much for discussing and reflecting and considering these works and these potential dreams into a future. Hope is so possible, and hope is so important in terms of imagining futures. I work trying to help people to imagine abolition, and the one way that you can do that is by helping to foster a sense of possibility, that actually abolition opens up opportunities. It doesn't close things down. It's not going to create some sort of chaos that will destroy all of our lives. Rather, it will allow more of us to get to live self-determined, free lives, right? So hope is really essential. What we're going to do now is a little bit of an exercise. You're going to actually partner up with somebody that you don't know, somebody that you didn't come with, somebody that you're not already connected to. And what I'm going to invite you to do, this is an offering. All of my suggestions are invitations. They're not, it's an invitation. But the invitation is that we're actually going to get out onto the land. We're actually going to go for a little walk outside. For folks who are joining us virtually, you'll be in a breakout room, but you could walk around your room, I suppose. But you're going to actually go for just a short walk outside, and you're going to do a paired activity. And what the activity is when it's your turn, you're going to have 5 minutes uninterrupted to describe in detail, from morning until night, what June 10th, 2025 looks like in your life. Tell us about your day. Tell us what you did. How did you wake up? Where did you wake up? What did you eat? 2025, June 10th, today, 3 years from now. What is different? What is potentially different in your life? Describe your day in as much detail as you can. You'll have 5 minutes. When you're done, your partner's turn, you'll listen and give them uninterrupted time to talk for 5 full minutes about June 10th, 2025. When you're done, we invite you to take a bio break, use the bathroom, whatever you need to do, and then we'll be back here together in this room at 5:30. So we'll come back into this room at 5:30. And if you're in a breakout room, your breakout room will close. It'll tell you where to be. But for now, I invite you to find somebody that you don't know. It'll be fun, really. Find somebody that you don't know and go on a walk together. And again, I'm a big believer in disability justice. If you feel that you need to go outside and sit somewhere and that's how you need to do it, however is accessible for you. We'll invite people back from the breakout rooms and welcome back to this room. So yeah, did you know you were going to spend today, one, in the future, and two, talking to someone that you don't know very well about your deepest and wildest dreams about the next 5 years of your life? Maybe not, but in the sun, sitting in the sun. So first of all, was there anything surprising? You don't have to tell me what it is, but just think about it. Was there anything surprising that you didn't expect to be in your day 3 years from now? Is there anything that you're like, wow, that wasn't, or is there anything different about the world that you didn't expect to be talking about? So just percolate if there's anything curious or anything that sort of strikes you as something that sort of stands out. 2, what was it like to talk to somebody else about your future? We don't even spend a lot of time talking to ourselves about our futures half the time, but nonetheless talking to someone else about a potential future. So what was it like to talk to someone? Oh, here, welcome back to folks coming back from the breakout room. I was just saying, it would be great to sort of think about if there's anything surprising in your day that you didn't expect to be talking about. And then, what is it sort of helping you to think about as you move forward? What I would invite you, and again, it's just an invitation, what I would invite you to think about on your drive home or bike home or walk home today, what would need to happen by December, in the next 6 months, in order for that day that you just described to really manifest itself? So think for yourself, just as a seed to plant, something to kind of go forward into your weekend. What would need to happen in the next 6 months? What seeds would you need to plant in order for that day 3 years from now? If you like that day, if it was a good day, if it was a day you'd like to make sure happens, maybe your day was apocalyptic and maybe you're hoping to go in a different direction. What would need to happen in 6 months to go in a different direction from the day that you just described? So I offer that as a bit of a closing offering for you to think about as you go about your day and continue into your evening. We have, I think, 2 students who are going to be doing reflections on what they've heard, and I'm so thankful for the chance to be able to hear and to sort of think back. But what I'll just sort of say in closing today is what I've offered are some potential ways that art can help us dream wild and possible dreams. I encourage you to set more of your meetings, more of your classes, more of your conferences in the future. Imagine what might be possible if you were already living as if you were there, if it was already 2050 and the stakes were that high. What would you do differently in a gathering like this if this was imagined to be set in the future? I encourage us to get familiar with the future, to lean into what might be possible. Always thinking about hope. There's an incredible group out of New Zealand called Fat Freddy's Drop. If any of you need some music to go along with your musing tonight, I encourage you to check them out. They have an incredible track called Hope. They've actually recorded it in 2 different tempos, so there's a slow version and a fast version depending on what your vibe is tonight. But one of the lines that they say is, "This is hope for a generation just beyond my reach, but not beyond my sight." So this idea that we're sort of imagining forward into a different kind of future. It's been amazing to get to dream into the future with you today, and I'd like to invite the students to give their reflections at this point. So thank you so much. I'll pass it back to you, Paola, to introduce them.
So you're going to stay around for... Yeah. Okay, so what we have co-created was the possibility of having a couple of reflections from some of the students. So we're very fortunate that we have 2 volunteers. We didn't have to twist their arm too badly. But the idea was really to give you a voice to share what your experience was like, especially this last activity that you did. And we really wanted it to come from your own experience, so you don't have to pretend that you're writing a paper or that you don't have to worry about if your supervisor's in the room. We really actually want to hear how this felt, how it resonated. You were walking, you were in the sun, and just share a little bit about that so we can also start thinking about education and hope, and a little bit of love and courage, which it really, really came out in the video. So thank you so much, Cyrus, for that. So we have Zainab and Sarah, and there is a microphone so that we can actually pass it over there. Okay, are you able to go up to the mic over there? One on each side. And we still have time if there is anybody online, hi everybody, if you're interested in also reflecting back, we actually have it set up now that we can actually have you on camera and have your voice shared as well. So, do you want to check on the chat?
Yeah.
We're just checking to see. Oh, it says speaker muted.
Oh, there we go. That should be better. Thank you, everybody.
I'm sorry, did you miss all of that? Derek, I see you. Did you miss all of that before? You can just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you heard anything. Okay, well, we're just going to be hearing back some reflections on their experience. Muted again. We must have touched it. We're being silenced. Okay, but we're not going to silence these two brave souls that are the hopeful souls. So, Sarah, we're going to be starting with you. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself a little bit about who you are and what brought you here to Participedia 2022, and then maybe share a little bit of your experience with us.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Sarah Abdella. I'm sure some of you have met me already, but I'm an RA for the Human Rights Cluster. I'm also doing the podcast as participation. Please call us, email us. We will be emailing you. But I'm here at Participedia as one of the RAs. I'm also a master's student here at McMaster, so this is like home for me. But to share some of my experience, I will say, as a student, asking me about the future, or asking any student, is like the scariest thing you can ever ask us. So if you see a master's student or a PhD student, just give us a break, because the answers we're trying and we don't know. And honestly, if it wasn't for this Participedia agenda, I wouldn't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. So thank you for the outline, Quinn and Jen. I appreciate it. And it was easier to say what I don't see myself doing versus what I am doing. I know that I don't want to be writing my master's thesis anymore. I'd really appreciate it. But this activity let me see a more optimistic future. I found myself saying things that were super hopeful, not as pessimistic as the videos. And as a student, the future is just the end. Whatever the end of my degree is, that's what the future is. So 3 years from now, it's a lot more hopeful than what it was yesterday. But in this activity, I found myself speaking with my partner, Bettina, and talking about the comparison of stability and chaos, and that there's beauty in both, regardless if it was yesterday, 3 years from now, or 5 years from now, and different possibilities of the future. No matter if it's optimistic or pessimistic, it's necessary, and you have to read it, you have to live it, and you have to see it. So thank you for.
Thank you so much for shining a light on some of the, not just your positive experiences, this is also a very important element in terms of the struggles that lead us to evoke hope. So thank you so much for that. And now we're going to hear from Zainab. So same, if you could please introduce yourself and then share a little bit about your experience.
Hello everyone, my name is Zainab. I'm a third-year student in political science, specializing in public law, and I'm also a member of the podcast team. I'll probably approach you at some point today trying to get you on one of the episodes. So this activity that we did was actually very new and very comforting for me, especially today, because in these types of conferences, we talk to people and we always we say our name, and then the very next thing we say is our research focus or where we work. It's always very academia focused, even though we are much more than that. That's like a very small part of our lives. Even though we define ourselves with that, that's pretty much nothing compared to what we are as human beings. So it was pretty cool to go up to people that I don't know and talk about what we want to do in 3 years from now, which by current standards is actually a pretty long time, a pretty long period from now. We don't even know what's going to happen in 3 years. But I think one common theme we had in ours was, it was a very surprising common theme because we were actually 4 people in our group. We were all very different than each other. There was Mr. Mark, there was Francesca, there was Caitlin. We're all very different, and we all said that we want to be out in the nature. We want to be, we are all in the pursuit of peace, not even happiness, just peace, peace of mind, hopefully some tranquility in our lives. And it was very interesting to see that even though we're from very different backgrounds, we're very different ages at very different points in our lives, we all just want peace and to connect with nature and the environment and hopefully live in a more green atmosphere, I guess. So thank you very much for this activity. It was very nice to connect in a more real way rather than a very surface level way of academia and our research focus. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to you to do, because you still have some time, to do some closing remarks. But I just wanted to say thank you to Zeynep and Sarah for sharing that. And I think that's certainly part of the intention of today's event, was to ensure that we are bringing all of ourselves, because all of us is needed in terms of moving forward. And so I'm going to now pass back to Cyrus for the last closing remarks.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for those reflections. First of all, yes, while being a student, the last thing that you want to hear is, how's the writing going? Or anything like that, because it can just be so traumatic. But it is beautiful to imagine a future in 3 years where you're doing something different and where you're living the dreams that you want to live. What I loved about hearing in the second reflection was how similar the dreams were. You know, that this basic idea that we want to have an earth, we want to be able to go out and live on it. We want to be outside. We want to spend time together with people that we love. You know, those are such universal goals, and yet I don't know that we're all moving directly towards that kind of future. So that's something that's really exciting, is to think about how similar our futures could potentially be if we dreamed into them together. Today, we were talking very light touches about abolition. You know, and abolition, to me, offers a different kind of future because we respond to crisis in a different way. You know, not like sirens wailing, but in a different way. You know, we respond to conflict in a different way in an abolitionist future. We lean into conflict and we work through it and we come out of it stronger together in an abolitionist future. In an abolitionist future, and Giselle Diaz, who, again, this Indigenous scholar based out of St. Catharines, talks a lot about this. If we had abolition, we would necessarily have Indigenous resurgence. If we had Indigenous resurgence and land back, we would have abolition because they're part of the same process. We would be imagining a future where all trans people got to live long enough to become elders, all of us, which is not guaranteed currently in this moment. Trans children can't even use the bathroom, nonetheless know that they're going to make it to 90. We'd be imagining a future that was imbued with trans justice. We'd be imagining a future where Black lives were inherently valuable. And because Black lives were protected as sacred and cared for, everyone else's lives would also be taken care of. We'd be imagining an accessible future, one where disabled, deaf, and mad people had everything that they needed to thrive, not only to be able to get in the building. Like, that is like so bare minimum of what we should be dreaming for in an accessible future, but one where we would have linguistic diversity. A lot of us would know ASL. A lot of us would be able to communicate in ASL, and we wouldn't be segregated by hearing and non-hearing communities. We'd be imagining a future where mad people and disabled people were able to be their fully embodied selves anywhere that they were. We'd be imagining a different kind of hope if we imagined an abolitionist future. This idea of dealing with each other through carceral methods that are related to punishment, it's not working. And what I'm offering, I guess, is The idea that anything is potentially possible as we go forward into our future. We can, as the video said, ancestors, do you read us? It's not too late. We can solve climate change. We can create a different kind of world in terms of the race relations and the ways that we interact with each other. One of the things that our great-grandchildren say to us in that video, they say, the first thing that I want to tell you is that I love you. We can create a future that is rooted in love, a future that is rooted in justice, and a future that is rooted in possibility. So, again, plug in your headphones, kick up that Fat Freddy's drop, listen to this tune, and imagine tonight what would need to happen by December in order for your dreams to start to manifest into a reality. And what I would also encourage you to do is to just talk to more people about your future, about all of our collective futures. I think we need to be talking about it more and more and more. So I hope that today is the beginning of a conversation about where we're headed together collectively, where we're headed individually, and how we're going to come together. Thank you so much for the chance to share these works. I really believe that art is such an amazing way to help imagine a different kind of world, because there's a video that is set in a different time period that says, hey, this could be what it's like. Some artists paint pictures, some people write songs, other people are doing theater pieces, but they're imagining something different. Art can be so powerful. So if you feel like getting creative tonight as you're dreaming about December, put some lines on a piece of paper, dance around, be as creative as you want to be in dreaming about your future. Thank you so much for the chance to speak with you today, and I look forward to hearing how the rest of the conference goes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. I just wanted to say it has been incredible to work with you on this, and it's just to see it in fruition and see people outside in the sun enjoying this moment and dreaming of the future was quite something. I also wanted to say that you've exemplified for myself the power of bringing your whole self, your scholarly work with your activism and your artistic work together in ways that I really do hope that the future, we see a lot more of that. And that you're also, modeling this approach for all of the people that are, in school right now or thinking about doing something. There is a lot of possibilities in the ways in which you work and the ways that you honor different knowledge, and also knowledge the acknowledgement of our ancestors, which I think is very, very important. And so I just wanted to say how much I appreciated it, and I know that there was a lot of really positive, but also grappling with this concept of the future. So you did also exemplify that tension that we felt and that we feel every day. So on behalf of the Participedia group, I just wanted to say thank you for saying yes to this invitation and for sharing all of that with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think we're just going to have more invites to join Participedia, right? Right, Bonnie? The other part of my job today is to thank everybody that has been involved in the creation of today's event. So I wanted to have a special shout out for Paul and Jesse, Jen and Quinn, and many others that were behind the scenes in Participedia that helped to create today. And also, really important, our tech support team. So we had Patrick's team, Anna, and the folks that are back there. I wanted to wave and say thank you for your patience and all the hard work that you're doing behind the scenes to make today possible. And I wanted to thank you, all of you, for taking the bold step of actually participating in a Participedia conference, which we're really hoping that we would get some movement and also think about how do we embody this kind of knowledge? And so you really exemplified that today in the activity. And so we thank you for showing up with courage and with love to continue doing the work that we need to do for the future. Thank you, everybody.